Thank you. So Psalm 67, it's on page 581 of the Church Bibles. It says in the Church Bibles, for the director of music with stringed instruments, a psalm, a song. May God be gracious to us and bless us, and make his face shine on us, so that your ways may be known on earth, your salvation among the nations. May the peoples praise you, God. May all the peoples praise you. May the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you rule the peoples with equity and guide the nations of the earth. May the peoples praise you, God. May all the peoples praise you. The land yields its harvest. God, our God, blesses us. May God bless us still, so that all the ends of the earth will fear him. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks, John, for reading. Thank you, Liz, for leading our prayers. Please don't worry about forgetting. I've got halfway through the Lord's Prayer and completely forgotten the wording. I also remember a time standing at the front and getting my words in a bit of a muddle, trying to explain what the Father's heart was, and mushed father and heart together, and you can imagine what I said. So don't worry, I've done worse. Do keep Psalm 67 open in front of you. We will get there. But we're going to take a little bit of time to get to Psalm 67. If you like, this morning, we're going to go on the scenic route. We're going to go down the country lanes. We're going to make a couple of stop-offs first before we get to Psalm 67. But do keep it open. The first stop I want us to go to this morning actually is a bit further on from Psalm 67. It's to Matthew 11 and to perhaps some of the... I can kind of say this about everything Jesus said. Some of Jesus' most famous words. You know, when he says, come to me. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. And then the bits that I kind of want our ears to hear this morning. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. I'm fairly sure this morning there's a number of us who just need to hear those words again from Jesus. After all, life throws all sorts of things towards you. We're trying to make sense of living in a very complex and complicated, slightly scary world maybe at the moment. And then just to add into the mix, this expectation that brings exhaustion of Christmas. Isn't it great that Jesus says, I will give you rest? But what we need to hear that is if we come to Jesus, we don't encounter him as somebody who's dismissive. He's not dismissive. He's not demanding. As somebody else has put it, he's not severe. He's not sour. How does Jesus talk about himself? He says he is gentle and humble in heart. That's the heart of Jesus Christ for you if you come to him. And then in the life of Jesus, you can read on. You can read on to a time where he walks into Jerusalem and he takes a step into the temple. And then suddenly there is this blur of action. Tables covered in coins are thrown to the ground. Chairs are kicked over. People scatter in all directions. Birds squawk, animals sound, and across all of this, over and above it all, comes Jesus' voice, clear as day, quoting from Isaiah 56, saying, is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of robbers. See, when Jesus saw what was going on in the temple, maybe it's very tempting for us to think, well, if he's got a gentle and humble heart, if he sees something that he doesn't like, that saddens him, well, he would just look there and look sad. No, this isn't the case. He's outraged. Jesus is moved into action. Why does Jesus act like this? Is this just Jesus having a bad day? Is this Jesus like I can get, tired and hungry? Is this Jesus having bottled loads of stuff up? You do it. I do it. You bottle everything up and then something happens and it just goes... Is that what's going on? No. This is what happens when Jesus, with a gentle and humble heart, encounters something that is so against the plan, the purposes, the promises of God, that it acts dramatically. If you were here last Sunday, first Sunday of Advent, you'll have picked up that we're doing a little 3-week series thinking through how the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ, is for all nations. Last week we started with Steve from up the road at St. Catherine's, looking at Genesis 12, this great promise that God gave to Abraham that goes on to shape the whole of the story of the Bible. God said to Abraham, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I'll make your name great. You will be a blessing. I'll bless those who bless you. I'll curse those who curse you. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. A promise of God's blessing reaching to every nation, every people group on earth through Abraham's family. A promise that God's goodness would get to be experienced by every kind of person, from every kind of nation. Ultimately because of one member of Abraham's family, a boy who was basically born in a shed, somebody who invites weary and burdened people to come to him, and who in righteous outrage tips over tables in the temple. The temple was a place where God's presence dwelt amongst God's people, where God's people were able to draw near to him. But on that day when Jesus stepped in, the first place he would have put his feet was the area around the temple. It was called the court of the Gentiles. All around the temple was the space, the only space where those who were non-Jews could draw near to God, who could come to pray. But what Jesus experienced was as if the door had been shut to anybody who wasn't a member of God's people. When Jesus stepped in, I want you to imagine King Power Stadium on match day. I want you to think Wembley Stadium on FA Cup final day. I want you to think of Foss Park Shopping Park on a Saturday in December. It's heaving. It's full of people. And when you look around, every corner there is somebody trying to sell you something. You see, Jews, as they came to Jerusalem for the big festivals, would come from far away. They came with their local currency. They needed to exchange it for the temple currency. So they could use that money to then buy a bird, an animal, to offer the sacrifices in the temple. And instead of this happening outside in the marketplace, they thought, oh, it's much easier if we do it nearby. We've got all this space around the temple. Let's use that. They turned this place where the nations could come to pray, and they turned it into a marketplace. So people from every nation, could they get in? No. They were squeezed out. The door was shut on them. Now, it might be helpful to think of it a bit like this, in terms of 2 seas in the Middle East. 2 seas you've probably heard of. The Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. Now, the Sea of Galilee, familiar probably if you've ever opened your Bible. What's it famous for? It's where Jesus did loads of miracles. He calmed the storm on the Sea of Galilee. He walked on water on the Sea of Galilee. The miraculous catch of fish happened on the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee was this exciting place full of life. It is still full of life. The Dead Sea, what's it famous for? Salt. And what can you do in the Dead Sea if you've ever... Anyone been to the Dead Sea? A few of you. What can you do in the Dead Sea? You can float. It's that salty that it will hold you and you can just float on it. It's so salty, there's no life to it. The clue is in the name. It is the Dead Sea. Both seas are fed by the same river, the River Jordan. So why is one full of life? Why is one dead? Well, the Dead Sea, the water flows in and it stays in. The Sea of Galilee, the water flows in and it flows out again. God's vision for his people all through history is for them to be like the Sea of Galilee. God's blessing, that promised blessing to Abraham, that blessing going in and being poured onto God's people, and then in turn that going out and reaching the nations. But when Jesus walked into the temple, what does he find? He finds they're like the Dead Sea. God's poured his blessing on his people. They're there in his presence. And nothing flows out. The door is shut to the nations. How wrong things had gone. You see, the temple had been the place where even songs about God's blessing reaching the nations were sung. We heard one of them this morning. I told you we'd get there, Psalm 67. It would have been sung time and time again. May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine on us so that your ways, Lord, may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. Do you hear that promise from Genesis 12 there? To Abraham, blessed in order to be a blessing. The experience of God's blessing is described in terms of a prayer that the priests would pray over God's people from Numbers 6, using the language of God's face shining upon them. When does somebody's face shine? When they smile. Whole face lights up. The idea for God's people is that God has turned his face towards them. And they get to experience his smile over them, his delight over them, his favour over them. Psalm 67 ends with the same longing, the same prayer. Verses 6 and 7. The land yields its harvest, God. Our God blesses us. May God bless us still, so that all the ends of the earth will fear him. And the response, the right response to experiencing God's blessing, it's there in verse 6. It's a cry of more, Lord. May God bless us still. But not just us. It's there in verse 2 as it is there in verse 7. This experience of God's blessing is so that God might be known and feared among the nations, all the ends of the earth. There is a longing woven into history that's rooted in God's promise. It's there in verses 3 and verses 5. May the peoples praise you, God. May the peoples praise you. Not just people, peoples. People from every nation, every country, every ethnicity, every people group. Because ultimately, as we see in the middle verse of Psalm 67, the God of the Bible, the living true God, is not one God amongst many gods. He's not a local God limited to one place, limited to one group of people, one kind of people. This is a God, we're told, who rules over all peoples. And he rules with fairness. This is the God who guides all nations of the earth. This is a God who's created every single life in this room, every single life of anybody watching, every single life of every person in every country. And he rules over, he guides those lives. And he even offers joy to every person from every nation, whether they realize it or not. Can you see then why Jesus was so upset when he walked in and found the door to God's presence to even begin to draw near had been closed? That's why he clears things up. And as Jesus throws out the money changers, as he gets rid of the animal sellers, he's not just creating the space for people from every nation to draw near again and have that place of prayer. I think Jesus is doing more than that. He is demonstrating in front of a whole crowd of people that this isn't needed anymore. You don't need the money changers. You don't need the animals. Why? Because the animal sacrifices that were at the heart of temple worship, the heart of God's people in the Old Testament, they're worshipping life. They weren't going to be needed anymore. Why? Because Jesus is here. Jesus, spoken of by John the Baptist, look, the Lamb of God, he takes away the sin of the world. With Jesus, we have the ultimate sacrifice. It was about to be made on the cross. A sacrifice no person, none of you, not me, even me, none of us could make. Blood is shed, not by an animal, but by Jesus on the cross. Payment is paid in full. Everything is put right. Relationship with our Maker is restored. We're reconciled. Not just for some people, but for people from every nation to know and experience God's face shining upon them. An animal sacrifice could never take sin away. It's a bit like finding yourself with an enormous debt that you need to pay. All you could do is to pay off the interest each month. That was like an animal sacrifice. It just about covered things, but it never dealt with the issue. It never dealt with the debt with Jesus. His sacrifice. Everything's paid in full, once, for all, forever. It's why, as Jesus died, in that, if you read the accounts, it's particularly clear in Mark's account, the action moves, doesn't it, from Jesus dying on the cross, and suddenly we're in the temple. And the curtain around the holiest place in the middle, that separation curtain, which said, a holy God lives in there. You can't come near. Is suddenly torn from top to bottom. The way into God's presence is open. We don't have to go to a building. We go to the person of Jesus Christ. So today, whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever your background is, whatever your nationality is, I want you to know that there is a way back to God that's open for you. It comes through faith in Jesus. For anyone who needs to hear it this morning, hear this. God is not just a God for certain kinds of people. God is not just a God for other people around you. In Jesus, God is a God for you. If you will be for Jesus. The invitation is come and know him. Know God's grace, his blessing. Experience his face shining over your life. And for those of you who know, trust, love Jesus, who follow him, you have God's face shining on you. He has turned his face towards you. He delights in you because you belong to his Son. That's true whether you are born in Thurmby or Thailand or Bushby or Botswana. And so let's make Psalm 67 our prayer for our life together. May God be gracious to us. Bless us. Make his face to shine on us. And it seems to me that over the last few years, that those words of Psalm 67, particularly verse 6, where it says, God, our God, blesses us, have been true for us here at St. Luke's. How? Well, we gather as people who belong to Jesus, and in Jesus you have every spiritual blessing. We're a church that it seems to me we are becoming more and more united around a boast in Jesus Christ and him crucified. Things that were maybe hidden in the past are being begun to be brought into light. There is a faith being cultivated in ever-increasing number with children and young people. We've planted Living Hope Church. We've been able to build an open Cafe 55. We have a freedom to worship that many Christians don't. We've had new people join us, whether brand new to church, brand new to faith in Jesus, or those who've been following Jesus for a long time and have moved churches. Our finances, we heard last week, are beginning to become much healthier because there's been a growth in giving. We're growing new partnerships, most recently with Hope Hamilton Church. There is blessing after blessing from God on us right now. What do we do with this blessing? Temptation is to hold on to it. I think we deserved it. We've earned it. But if we do that, we're just like it was when Jesus stepped into the temple. We're like the Dead Sea. We'll find that there's no real life amongst us, and people just turn up to float around. And ultimately, Jesus will want to clear things up. We must recognize, first of all, that these blessings from God come to us because of his generosity. Not because we've earned it, not because we deserve it. Look out again at how Psalm 67 begins. May God be gracious to us. It's a prayer for God to continue to show his loving kindness to a group of people who don't deserve it. And the moment we realize that, we discover that we can't hold on to it. It's not ours to hold on to. We're shown this blessing in order to share it out. See, in Psalm 67, there are two really important words that we mustn't miss. The psalm begins, "May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine on us, so that your ways may be known on earth." It's there again in verse 7, "May God bless us still, so that all the ends of the earth will fear him." We need to be a church that is about so that. Blessed in order to be a blessing. We grow in order to give away. And as we give away, we grow. My prayer from Psalm 67 is that the Lord would grow us in his grace. But he would also grow our heart for the nations. I just wonder at the moment whether our view of the world really is a bit deflated at the moment as a church. There's lots going on locally and it's got our attention and it is good and the Lord is blessing it. But I wonder if we need to inflate our focus on God's world. How do we do this? Well, let's continue to be rooted in God's grace. To remember these blessings we're experiencing are not because we've earned it. It's not because we deserve it. It's because God has chosen to do it. It's not ours to hold on to. It is ours to share out. Very practically, I could talk about how in 2026 we're going to review and renew our mission partnerships. Different organisations and people around the world who we support. So they're not just organisations or people we occasionally remember to pray about, but we're hearing about what the Lord is doing around the world. I want us to explore and encourage how we might get involved with some short-term mission trips. I'd love for us to begin to see over the years that we become a sending church, a church that sends people out into the nations, whatever that might look like. But I think there is something for each of us to do right now. If we're to become a church with an ever-increasing global focus, I think that means asking the Holy Spirit to put a place in the world on our hearts now. It might be for each of us a different place. It might just be the Holy Spirit puts a particular people, a particular country, a particular region on your heart. Just there, it's what he does. It might be because of circumstances in your life have meant that you've had contact with people from those places. Maybe it's people you've met. Maybe it's because you already support particular mission workers or organisations around the world. Talking about Stephen Haynes earlier and that opportunity next Monday to be giving thanks to God for his life, but to be grieving as well. What's one of the legacies Stephen's life has left on us as a church? Oh boy, did he have a passion for church planting in Tatarstan. If you've never heard about that, find somebody who's been in St. Luke's for a few years and ask them about church planting in Tatarstan, because Stephen organised trips out there, fundraise for them, constantly filling containers with stuff to send out, prayer letters, persistent in prayer. He had a heart for that place. Where's the place in the world God has put on your heart? And as we have that, we begin to speak to one another about what the Lord is doing. So I'm going to do something, I haven't really planned this, so that's, has the potential for all go horribly, horribly wrong, but we'll roll with it. I suspect in the room today there will be people who have a particular passion, a particular heart for a place or a region, and you know what the Lord is doing. I wonder in 15, 20 seconds of words, you might have something that you want to share. It might not be Tatarstan, it might be somewhere else. I'll go first. I was speaking with my parents. My parents retired to become missionaries in China. They're not there anymore. China, as you know, has become a country that has got harder and harder to be a Christian in. The government is clamping down on churches and Christians gathering together. My parents are kind of despairing at this. And then they spoke to somebody who had become a Christian whilst they were in Birmingham, where my parents live, and had gone back. And they had contact, and she said, "It's tough, but I've started a Bible group in my workplace, and people are becoming Christians." Isn't that wonderful? The Lord's at work. What other stories do we have in the room? There's going to be some people, I'm sure. Nobody dares move. I'm going to pick on some people then. Michael, you were doing something in Spain recently. There were lots of nations there.
Yeah, so there are people from all over Europe and Eurasia who want to share Jesus in their universities. Actually, one story from a thing I was at before that, actually, in Eurasia, there was a guy from Azerbaijan where it'd be very difficult to be public about being a Christian, but he felt really convicted that he should be more public about his faith in the university. So he found the only other Christian in his university, and they decided they would have a very public Bible study in the canteen. And they would speak a bit louder than normal so everyone could listen to what was going on. And he emailed me a few weeks ago and he said, we've been doing it. And as a result, all these other people in the canteen are now asking if they can join in the Bible study. So they're having a very public Bible study in the canteen in Azerbaijan.
That's so cool. Who knew about gospel work in Azerbaijan before this morning? I didn't. It's great, isn't it? Anybody else got anything? Go on, Chris.
I'm heading out to Ukraine later this week. We've got some friends out there that are doing amazing work, and it's amazing seeing, I think, people are asking the big questions. The war's meant that people are asking questions about what's the purpose of life and is there good and evil? And so there's just lots of people that are kind of seeking and coming to church, and it's amazing to see what they're doing out there. So visiting them next week.
Brilliant. Anyone else? I'm very tempted in a year's time to do this again. And what I'm hoping for is the fact that we'll overrun by about 3 hours, because every person has got a story, because the Lord has put a particular place on your heart. You're praying for that place. You're connecting with Christians there, supporting them financially. The Lord that we worship is not just about blessing what's going on here in Thurmby or in Leicester or in this country. He's a God of nations. The great vision of Revelation 5 is that at the centre, around the throne, is a lamb, Jesus, a lamb who was slain, that sacrifice made, and every tribe, tongue and language worshipping him. The psalm we've been in this morning ends by saying, may God bless us still, so all the ends of the earth will fear him. And say, Lord, that is our prayer today. Would you bless us still? Would you turn your face to shine upon us again and again and again, so that the ends of the earth will come to know you. Amen. We're going to respond with